Today we have Chris Connelly with us. Welcome.
Hi.
And let's start off with why did you decide to join Focal Point?
Yeah, it's interesting because the timing of becoming a focal point coach is a little different for everybody, and it depends on where you are in your career. I was later in my career, a long time in technology, in sales leadership, and I really felt like I only had, a handful or less of years left I was going to work. Uh,
Right.
we had a corporate change that gave me a different option internally that I didn't really want. So that's when I started looking. And for me, it was perfect timing for me because it was either go in, do something that I really don't want to do, or do what I've always loved to do, which is work with people and helping them make themselves better. So
Right.
it was just perfect timing for me. I don't know if there's a formula that tells you when it's the right time, though. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I it's always so interesting to hear the backstory and hear when people joined. I love it. And so you kind of gave a little bit about what you were doing before you were a coach. And I know earlier you had mentioned maybe technology you have some experience with. So what position were you in before specifically?
Yeah, I've been a sales leader most of my life, whether it's direct first line leadership as a sales manager, but then I became a director and had other level titles. So I've really been in sales leadership and helping teams get better at how they go and acquire clients and meet their goals and those type of things. And so that's what I've been doing most of my life, which makes this really a very natural movement for me, honestly. Yeah.
That's really nice. It's always
Yeah.
nice having that sales background too. I spoke with Adam Thompson before, and same thing with sales. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, how did you know then that it was the right time to start this business of yours?
Yeah, I wasn't looking to do this when I started my journey. As I mentioned, the company I was with made a large acquisition. They asked me to move into a different role. I didn't really want to do that. I asked them what options I had, and they said, listen, take 4 months and make a decision. You're going to either go into this role or we're going to give you an exit package. And so I really had 4 months to kind of look around. And one of the things that I learned about myself was if you're familiar with David Horsiger's Trust Edge, which many of us are, my highest pillar of trust was character. And so I
Okay.
just really struggled. I had a lot of competitors coming out of the woodwork saying, come work for us. Hey, we've got a great opportunity for you. I
Mm.
just struggled with the idea of sitting in front of a customer and saying, forget everything I've told you the last 20 years, now go this way. And
Right.
I just felt like that would be disingenuous. So I decided, it's going to be time. I only have, a handful or two years left to work. It's going to be time for me to do something else. Let me look at something that I love. That's when Scott and I got in touch with each other. We started talking, and I said, you know what, coaching sounds like it would be a lot of fun. So that's kind of what pushed me into this. In the end, some people say, well, how'd you know it was the right time? Sometimes I feel like it took me too long to get here. I wish I'd
Really?
done it like 10 years ago. But things worked out the way they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that sometimes the right time doesn't feel like it. And do you ever wish that you waited a little longer before starting, or so
No,
it's the
I wish
complete?
I'd gone sooner, honestly.
Yeah.
I really do. In the environment I was in, coaching was different than it is at Focal Point. Coaching
Hmm.
was very command and control. It
Yeah.
was, we're the big engine. I'm the sales leader. You're going to do what I tell you to do. And let me coach you on how to do what I'm telling you to do. And the difference, obviously, at Focal Point is we're helping business leaders learn how to solve their own problems by coaching them and by pulling them along in the process. It's a very different process than I was
Right.
used to. So I kind of wish I'd done it sooner, honestly.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. It's because these things fall into our lives at the times that they do, but um, it's so powerful to hear that and to hear the impact that it has made on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And finances do come into play because it does take some investment to start a business and to buy a franchise and to be ready to go. And so, I do think some people might have a struggle with that part of it. And if that's the
Hmm.
case, you've got to solve that problem. But if
Right.
that's not the case, for me, I had an exit package. So I had a handful of cash when I left the company, and that was what I used to get my business started. And so it made that burden a little less on me. But those that have difficulty in that burden really need to make sure that they have their plan set before they make that decision to move. Because once you move, it's too late. You got to go, go, go. Right.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
And is that why you acted when you did and why you joined Focal Point was because you had that bit of security there, or?
Yeah, it was two things really. It was the fact that I didn't have as much of a financial burden to get in as I might have. But the other thing was, which you know very well, at Focal Point, we identify our ideal client and we
Yeah.
kind of define them. I really had, and I tell everybody I talk to, I'm lucky because I really had a market ready and waiting for me by the time I came on board. So I'm under 2 years in my journey. I've been really successful, but I've been successful because I'm actually calling on people that I've known for 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
It's an easier path for me to have that conversation with them. So the financial burden being lessened was part of it, but the other was I knew what my ideal market was going to be, and I knew that it was going to be a softer or warmer introduction to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's the whole Champions Network and knowing the people that you have grown up with your business, without your business, whatever
Yeah.
it may be. But we say it so often, Champions Network and over again. But it
Yeah.
really is such a valuable tool to keep working with those people you've made those connections with.
It is. It is. And I'll give you one quick caveat. I've stayed just in my ideal client space for a long time now.
Mhm.
And I literally just signed my very first non-technology client. They're a steel
Really?
company, and I know nothing about the steel business. So I'm doing an awful lot of chat GPT work and
Yeah.
learning and everything, but I'm going to be coaching one of their local plant managers.
Okay.
They're in multiple locations, but they have a plant here in Jacksonville, Florida, where I am, and I'm going to
Mhm.
be coaching one of their plant managers. And so, to me, that's a great opportunity for me to kind of stretch myself a little bit and
Yeah.
something new, right?
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
really cool to hear. It's is it exciting or a little nerve-wracking?
It's exciting, I think, mostly. I'm not uncomfortable talking to a different industry, and I've done
Mhm.
a lot of public speaking before. And so I'm not uncomfortable with that. The challenge, I think, is this particular person has a lot of personal challenges. And so I'm trying to really draw the line between life coaching and business coaching and make sure they
All right.
understand I'm here to help you from a business perspective and to build a culture of accountability and a set of core values that will work in the organization, as opposed to, I'm going to help you learn how to deal with your family challenges.
Yeah. So in coaching, what exactly helps you draw that line? I know with myself, I'm way too personal and I'll jump right in and be like, oh, let me help you everywhere. And, that's difficult for some people to draw that line. So what is it that you do to help you with that?
You might not have known it, but that was an amazing question.
Oh, thank-
Because uh, what does it and is the same thing that really made me realize Focal Point was the right place. First of
Mhm.
all, let me just back up and say I've always been a Brian Tracy fan, and the fact that he founded the company along with Cam Frazier years ago was a big draw to me. What
Mhm.
solves that line for me is our content. Just lean on our content. Our content is so logical in its progression, going through clarify, grow, lead, and so for me, it's, hey, I understand you've got a myriad of different challenges, but we're going to focus on these things first. And this is what
Mhm.
our content does. So the easy part to me is just to lean on what Focal Point already has in our library. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, there's so much there too, and
Yeah.
um, I think that's a really good little tool for the people that may or may not know. And I'm sorry, you can hear my dogs barking in the
I
background.
can't.
Perfect. They're distracting me. So, anyways, sorry, getting back to it a little
Yeah.
bit. Um, some of the previous questions was asking you was about this timing and when does it feel right and things along that line. So, what advice would you give to someone who is unsure if right now is the right time?
I would say in order for you to be a yes decision to move forward with a focal point franchise and to become a coach, you have to
Mhm.
have three things. The very first is you have to understand what your market's going to be. You can't just become a coach and say, all right, I'm going to go after something I've never done before, right? You have to have a concept of who you think you can help on a day-to-day basis. The second thing is you have to have drive. You can't
Yeah.
just say, I'm going to kind of do some coaching here and some coaching there. You still have to wake up every morning. When I had zero clients, I'd wake up in the morning, come in here, hop on the computer. I was doing some work, and my wife would ask me, you don't have anybody yet. What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm getting somebody,
Yeah.
I'm working on it. So you have to have that natural drive. And then the third thing is, if there's a way for you to either absorb the burden or have help with the burden of starting a business, because it does take some money to do that.
Mhm.
And when you get to that point where you say, I've lessened or handled the burden to a point where I'm comfortable with making this leap, along with the drive and knowing my market, those three things I think are yes formulas. If you don't have all three, you kind of need to, maybe go through a little more decision-making process. Maybe you can still move forward, but those are the three things I think that make it an automatic. You need to do this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's really good and really good advice,
Yeah.
I think. I have one more question for you that's a little bit off of what we've been speaking about, but
Okay.
out of curiosity, is there a particular client or success story that has really stayed with you and kind of keeps you motivated?
Yeah, there is. I was actually my very first client, and
Mhm.
they've been with me for almost or about a year and a half now. Um, one of the beauties of Focal Point is you're building your own business, and you can incorporate other things into your business. And
Mhm.
so I'm friends with another author, motivational speaker named John Gordon. He and I are personal friends. We know each other, have known each other for 20 years. I'm certified in his technologies as well, which is very complementary to Focal Point. And then I'm also certified in Trust Edge and PQ and other things.
Mhm.
So I think that the interesting piece to me is that I've been able to bring all of those together for this single client. I'm coaching all four of their C-level executives at the top, the CEO, COO, Senior VP of Sales, et cetera. And in what I've been working on with them, they came to me and said, we want to find out how to get our individual contributors, the very customer facing people in our organization, to buy
Mhm.
into the kind of things that we're working on. What can we do? And I said, hey, I've got a Power of a Positive Team workshop with John Gordon that I can do in combination with some other focal point things. And I'll customize a workshop for you at your
Mhm.
sales kickoff. And they said, gosh, what would that cost? And I said, well, pay my travel and here's a fee. And they said, you know what? That's within our budget. And I was like, holy cow, I was ready to negotiate down, but it worked out, right? But that was a great way to say I'm going from one-on-one coaching to now I'm talking to their individual contributors. I give them 10 ways to build more positivity in their team environment. But then I also made the link and the leap in focal point terminology with the things that we were working on from a leadership standpoint with the executives. And so to me, that's a perfect. I tell people I do three things. I do one-on-one coaching, I do workshops, and I do group coaching. That
Mhm.
was a perfect way to bring in a second capability, that
Yeah,
workshop, to do that. Yeah.
that's awesome. That's
Hopefully I
really
didn't take too long explaining that.
No, that was perfect. I love it. It's
Yeah.
awesome. And especially, hearing all the tools, the certifications, everything, hearing how it can be applied in a way that works for you and for your business.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it shows how everyone really does do the coaching in their own way and how they can apply it in a way that works for them and works for their clients. No, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing.
There's one other thing I'd share with you, Gabby, about considering coming on board to Focal Point and how you're going to be brought in.
Yeah.
I just want to call out, I have yet to reach out to anybody on staff or that's a fellow coach anywhere in the country, actually in the world, also, that,
Mhm.
that person hasn't been willing to jump in and help me, whether they know me or not. I know Terry Daniels now as an example, but I reached out to Terry before he ever knew me. I heard a story of something he did, and I was going to have a similar situation. He spent an hour and a half on the phone with me, helping me. And I was like, dude, that is amazing. So that's the one thing I think is different, that maybe we don't build enough benefit on is the culture that we have to help each other, and we pass business to each other
Mhm.
sometimes, and so I think that culture is something that we don't advertise enough early on in the process.
I get that. I mean, personally, my favorite part is the culture.
Yeah.
And it's why most people are here. And everyone that I talk to, um, personally or in meetings, whatever it may be, culture is the one thing that everyone mentions, whether it's financial or your clients. And, it's that culture that brings everyone together because it's all these different walks of life, and everyone really is so wonderful here. It's my favorite part of Focal Point. So I thank you so much for saying that.
You bet. You bet.
All right. Well, I think that was all the questions I had for you. So thank you so much.